Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Small Business Show. My name is Swire, your host. My guest today is Lynn Roberts. She's the president and CEO of Innergy Corporate Yoga. Lynn was trained as a broadcast journalist back in the days, and then she found that too stressful. So she ended up founding yoga and became a yoga teacher. And later on, she founded Innergy Corporate Yoga to focus on corporate wellness and helping more people. I'd love to get into more conversation with Lynn about that. Before that, welcome to the show, Lynn.
Thank you, Swire. Thank you for having me today.
For people who are not yet be familiar with you and your work, what should they know about you and Corporate Yoga?
Well, I've been a yoga teacher for over 18 years, and I started Innergy Corporate Yoga because I saw that there was a real need to have yoga and meditation and mindfulness brought into the workplace. And if we go back 18 years ago, way before COVID, we weren't doing anything online. It was all in person. And so Innergy Corporate Yoga is a company that was born out of the belief that, yoga and meditation are some of the best tools out there to help us with things like stress, energy, mindfulness, productivity, morale. The list goes on and on.
Okay. It's interesting that, I think that when most people think about doing yoga, especially nowadays in social media like Instagram and TikTok, when you do yoga, you have to do a king cobra position. I challenge everyone to Google what king cobra pose looks like. Try to do it yourself. Don't hurt yourself. And you actually said that you don't have to be a yogi to do yoga. So I wanted to get your take for bringing yoga to the workplace. How does that work and who should get involved?
Yeah, and you're right about Instagram and TikTok. There are a lot of very, very flexible people out there. And so sometimes when we look on something like Instagram, we think, oh, I could never do yoga because we see people in these incredible, gymnastic type positions. And that's fantastic if their body moves that way. The majority of us, myself included, are not able to do a lot of those poses. And that's not what yoga is. Yoga is not about achieving a certain pose, looking model perfect. It's not what you see online. It's not what you see in the magazines. It's, yoga in the workplace is meant for everybody. It's meant for the executives. It's meant for the busy professionals. It's meant for the accounting team and the, receptionist. It's just really meant for the average person. And our goal really is just to help people with, again, small things like stress that can become really big things if we don't, have tools to sort of manage them. So yoga in the workplace is accessible for everybody, regardless of your shape, your size, your experience with yoga, and regardless of, how flexible you are. That's not really important.
Okay, that's good to know. And we always say, especially with COVID, I've talked to a lot of people in the Chamber of Commerce with my own client, that they're really stressed at work. They have to balance, obviously, whatever that goes on in your life. And then now companies are trying to bring employees back to work. So they're used to their work from home routines, and now they're back to work. So they're really stressed. So can yoga help them when they start practicing at work?
Yes. I mean, I like to think of yoga as, there's two kinds of yoga, and there's more than two kinds of yoga. But what I really mean by that is there's yoga where we roll our yoga mat out and we do a class, or we do a YouTube video, or we go to a yoga studio, or we do corporate yoga at work. And then there's yoga, what we call off the mat. And that yoga off the mat is really the real deal. And this is where if you're driving in your car and you get stressed and you want to yell at somebody or honk the horn, you don't do that. You choose to instead take a deep breath and feel, why am I feeling this way? And you sort of calm yourself down. And that yoga as well is when we're in the grocery store and there's a big lineup, and instead of freaking out and getting mad, we calm ourselves down with our breath and we take a little stretch and we just come into our bodies more. So yoga is really something that we can do anywhere.
Okay. Can you give us a quick example? I know that, you mentioned that, you can do it basically anywhere without a mat.
You can do it anywhere. Do you want me to show you a great stretch for your lower back?
Yes, please.
Okay. And I chose this one because we're always complaining about our lower backs. People who sit are always saying my back hurts or I have a bad back. Well, the reason we have a bad back is because we don't stretch it and we don't move it in the different directions. So before I show you this stretch, one of the things to know about our spine is that it actually bends in four directions. We can go forward, we can go backward, we can go to the right, and we can go to the left. And that's one of the things that yoga does. It takes your spine through the full range of motion in each direction. So I'll zip back here so you can see me, and I'll turn to the side.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone wants to follow along and do this stretch, just come to sit at the edge of your seat. So you want to be away from the back of the seat. And Swire's going to do it with me here. Great. So we'll put our hands on our thighs. Take a deep inhale and look up toward the ceiling and arch your back forward. So you're rounding your back, sticking your chest forward and up. Look up to the ceiling if it's okay for your neck. Inhale. And then as you exhale, round your back and start to go the other direction. So pull your belly button in, look down at your knees or your belly button, hands on your thighs or your knees. Exhale all the breath out. And then we'll do that a couple more times. So inhale, come forward, looking up, press your chest forward, lift your tailbone. And then exhale, pull your belly in, hands on thighs, round your back. And we'll just do one more round of that. So inhale, coming forward, looking up, just going as far as you comfortably can. And then exhale all your breath out, round your belly in. Good. And then inhale, just come back to center. How's your back feel now?
Oh, yeah, I love this one. It's subtle, then you could really do it without any equipment. You can do it all day.
All day long. You can do that seated. You can do that on a yoga mat. You can do it in cat-cow position with hands on the floor. But that's an easy one that people can do right at their desk without having to get changed or get their yoga mat on the ground.
Have you had any study, or have you observed your client, being, take on the wellness program? Are they being more productive? Are they, become less stressed? What are your thoughts, seeing them go through at least a few months of, doing yoga and actually moving around in the office space?
Yeah, good question. So we have no statistics to prove it. It takes a lot of resources and time and money to actually do some kind of scientific study around that. There's very few studies around yoga itself in that sense. But, what we do is we go to our clients quite often and we ask them, how are things going? And what are you noticing? And we even ask the people that have come to our classes, how do you feel after yoga versus how you feel on a day where we don't do yoga with you? And it's pretty unanimous. People say they have more energy, they feel better, they're not in their head as much, they get more done, they're more productive, and they're in a better mood. That's one of the things that we don't often think about with yoga is sometimes we just get grumpy, right? We become grumpy adults and we kind of carry that from day to day. And I like to think of yoga as it's a way to sort of push the reset button. It just kind of clears out the cobwebs. It allows you to, stretch your body, get rid of the kinks, get rid of the mental kinks as well, and just kind of come back into your body. So that's what we hear from our clients, Swire, is that they just feel better. They're getting more done. They're working together better as a team. I always say yoga fixes everything, and it doesn't really fix everything, but I like to think of it as it almost does.
I think that's interesting. Now you're saying that, because in my own experience, I never met a person who have done yoga, or maybe an advanced practitioner that are mad and upset. Normally, if you're in the yoga room, maybe you go in, you have some stress or you're mad, right? You have a bad day, but at the end, you walk out feeling happy, you feeling smooth, and you can be angry after a yoga class. That I know there's no scientific study on that, but I know that for a fact, seeing people coming out from yoga classes.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. There's an actual scientific reason, and that's because we hold emotions in our body. We hold them in our muscles and in our joints and in our tendons, and we can't get rid of that, that anger or whatever emotion it is that's holding us back by just thinking about it or reading a book about how to do it. We have to actually, move our bodies and take deep breaths and exhale and let that tension go. There's a lot of science to really show that we hold those negative emotions in our bodies. And one of the things that happens when we do yoga typically is we start to release some of those emotions. And those can be anger, sadness, grief, even just feeling guilty about something. That's a really big one. It's just those dark negative emotions. And it just allows us to have more space in our body for things like happiness and joy and calmness and serenity.
I think one thing that COVID brought us to a lot of attention on is our self-wellness. So obviously for obvious reason. And also now companies are focusing on making sure that their employees are healthy, right? They are able to come to work, they're able to, do the work that they're supposed to. So there actually more companies that I know are more on the lookout for something that, will bring, their employees to have better better workplace, so to speak. And also wanted to ask you for, a wellness program and employees retention. You know, do you notice that there are more company focusing on that right now by being them, and actually you're coaching them how to be more happy, how to be more less stress at work. Do you think that helps on the retention from your interact with clients?
I absolutely think it does. There was a study years ago that I read, and I can't remember the source of the study. I apologize. But I remember reading this study, and the study was on what makes people want to work somewhere. And, when we think what makes people want to work somewhere, we think income, whichever company pays me the most, right? And of course, we think satisfaction and happiness, right? We won't work somewhere if we're miserable or if our boss is just not a nice person. But actually, what this study said was the number one reason why people choose to work at a company is appreciation, is
Hmm.
companies appreciating their employees. And that can be by physical gifts. It can be by praise, great job, recognition. It can also be by having what we call work perks. And work perks could be everything from food to a ping pong table in the lobby to benefits. And, one of the things that happened, Swire, with COVID is companies who aren't on site anymore or who are only on site part-time, they lost their ability to do on-site activities. So things like having that ping pong table, lunch on Friday. If nobody's there, they can't do lunch. So they started to get really creative and think of ways that they could do this virtually. And yoga, of course, is one of the best ways to really appreciate your staff and give them something that's accessible to everybody, a low income or low impact rather workout. We don't really think of yoga as a workout, but it sort of is something that everybody can do. It's really accessible to everybody. So yes, to answer your question, again, no scientific studies that I've done on this, but I would say for sure retention is a big problem right now, and it's definitely something that yoga can help with because people want to work where they're appreciated.
Yeah, I think it's also an icebreaker too, and the team building factor is definitely in there. So if you are a manager, for example, of a team, then if you are going into class with your fellow coworkers, then you kind of bond together, and then you are now seeing your manager actually, that took the time to come in, so you appreciate the manager a little more. So I think the team building part is definitely in there.
Absolutely. There's something to be said about that as well. Even when we teach yoga virtually, we're still coming together as a team on the screen. And, one of the things I noticed, back when I started teaching corporate yoga 18 years ago, I had this one class and I remember everybody came in and all of a sudden I heard these two women talking in the class and one said, "Oh my goodness, are you Julie?" And the other one said, "Yes, are you Angela?" Or whatever their names were. This was a long time ago. And they realized that they had worked together in the same building for years and years, but they had never met, but they had been emailing each other for work things. And there was a really huge company and they were at opposite ends of the building. And so after, I think it was 8 years or something, they finally met in person and it was in the yoga class. So yoga does bring people together at work for sure.
Yeah, I think we do, really miss the human interaction. So for depending on where you live, you might still work remotely. But then if there's no better place than building a team by putting them together in a physical place, and they can see each other. They could really interact with each other. Like we're human, are people, right? We got to see each other.
Yeah, and one of the great things about yoga is it's a very individual practice. So it's not like in the yoga class we're touching and doing a lot of partner things, especially with COVID. Especially with virtual, we're not really doing that sort of team building aspect, but there's something to be said about being in a room full of people that you work with where you just pick up their energy. And that's one of the things I noticed about yoga way back when I went to my very first class was I could have been in that room by myself, but there was something magical about being in there with other people, knowing that we're all going through stuff. We're all going through hard times. We're all stressed out. But here we are together breathing. You would hear somebody sighing. You would hear somebody sometimes even crying in the back of the room, just letting go of those emotions that they no longer need. So there's something kind of interesting that happens when we get together as a group and practice yoga.
Okay. I want to ask you a little bit more about your journey. You became a yoga teacher, and at what point you decided you wanted to bring this into the corporate world? Do you always envisioning, going into corporate training, or instead of doing opening a yoga studio and do training there?
Okay, so this is going way back. I have to think way back now. So, well, I remember that before I was even a yoga teacher, I had the idea that maybe I could bring this into businesses. It was just a fleeting, thought in my mind. But if I go back a little further, when I was a journalist, I had a boss and she was an alcoholic, an extreme alcoholic. I don't know how she kept her job, but she would come to work at least once a week, completely hammered. And somehow she managed to get through her day-to-day tasks. And nobody, either they didn't notice or they just looked the other way, because she was very good at her job and she was a very functional alcoholic. But what that taught me very early on in my early 20s was not everybody handles their stress well. Not everybody has a productive way to get rid of stress. And it's a very toxic situation when you work with someone at work, because she would sometimes, because she was intoxicated, she would say things, she would swear, she would say things that were inappropriate. And I just thought, this is not a good situation. And then I became, I did my training, I became a yoga teacher. And even in the middle of my training, I started thinking, well, if I could bring this to workplaces like where I used to work, then, we could help people. We could help them with their stress in a way that's positive. There's nothing about yoga that is unhealthy. There's nothing about it that's, not good for you. And it's really accessible to everybody. So that's one of the things that happened to me, was if I go way, way back. And then one day I was in the yoga studio where I did my training. And I think it was right before I started my course. And this woman walked by and everybody sort of whispered and went, "Oh, that's so-and-so." And I thought it was a celebrity. And I said, "Who was that?" And they said, "Oh, that's so-and-so. She owns a corporate yoga company." And I went, "Okay, I have to talk to her. This sounds pretty cool." And I just started to get the idea that why make everybody drive to a studio? Studios are great, but not everybody will take the time to go there. They're busy. They not only work all day, they've got kids to pick up and all sorts of things going on. And I started thinking, if we could bring this in and make it so that it's right down the hall, and make the classes a little shorter, and make it so that everybody can come regardless of your fitness level or your ability, then we could make yoga really accessible to all these people that really need it the most.
Yeah, I've been to your website too, and I love that how you modified the process. That you're right. You don't have to bring out the yoga mat or the blocks or the fancy props. You can be on your chair. Like the one stretches you show us. You can actually learn maybe a few more. Then throughout the day, you do them maybe every hour or so. Then you actually feel better. You're actually moving. I think the one of the problem that a lot of people complain about lower back pain, they just sit all day. They just sit all day.
Yeah. Yeah. And and there's so much that can be done now. I think it's just a matter of making it a habit. It's like brushing your teeth or making sure that you drink water. You just have to find a way to do it where it's not such a big job. Keep the water bottle on your desk. People say put a little marker on it so that you know how much you've drank, or measure it out, put it in the fridge. Everything kind of works differently for different people. You have to find what works for you. But definitely don't think that, oh, if I don't go to a 60-minute yoga class, that's it, I can't do anything. You can do little stretches throughout the day. You can take a deep breath. One of the very, very simple things someone can do is just roll their shoulders up, back, and down. Do you want to try it with me, Swire? Okay, so we'll do it with a breath. So inhale up, really reach them up, really, really, really high, and then exhale down. Okay, and then do it again. Inhale up, exhale down, and we go back and down. And then let me show you one more thing. So this time, inhale, bring your shoulders up all the way in, breathe in. Now open your mouth and drop your shoulders and breathe out with a sound. Right. Let's do it one more time. Inhale, shoulders up, 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 up. Exhale, mouth open. Doesn't that feel good?
Yeah, I like that. Sometimes I get nervous during the show, so my lower back really get tense. So I will be doing that. If you watch the show from now on, you see me like rolling my shoulders and mute myself and doing breathing. So I do think that especially I'm a salesperson, so when sometimes I get into situation where I have to negotiate or I have to present. So I think if I'm not watching my breath, then I will catch myself like I'm out of breath. I'm out of breath. I'm really nervous. I'm sweating. So, but like you said, by breathing properly, then I could control my emotion. I can kind of control the situation better than if I'm nervous or sometimes upset getting into a certain situation in business.
Absolutely. And I think we need to trust in those tools a little bit. On the weekend, I was in I went ziplining on the weekend, this past weekend with my
Nice.
2 teenage daughters. And of course, I got up to the first zip line and my heart started to beat a little bit faster. And I thought, oh my goodness. And it only lasted about 8 seconds. And I caught myself and I said, so one of the things that sometimes people do, Swire, is they try and turn off their thoughts. When they're having those thoughts, they try and say, how do I switch this off? How do I just stop thinking all these crazy thoughts? Well, it's impossible to do that because that's what our brain does. Our brain thinks it's there to protect us. It's functioning. That's what it does. But one of the things we can do instead is we can come into our body. And how do we do that? Well, the best tool to do that is your breath. So if you just watch yourself breathing in, breathing out, make it really long. It takes about 3 to 5 breaths to really notice, oh, I'm not really thinking those thoughts anymore. I'm now thinking about, breathing in my body. So when I was ziplining, I just immediately said, just start breathing. And I started breathing and all of a sudden everything was nice and calm. I got on the zip line and away I went.
Yeah, I think this is something that doesn't cost anything. Anyone can do, right? And if you think about just at a pure business standpoint, it helps you, for example, going in for a sales call, for example, do 3 to 5 breathing before you dial that number, or when you walk into a big presentation, right? Do the breathing exercise. You can do it basically anywhere, anytime. Then it actually give you a tremendous effect, that you already have in you. So I think that's something I'll definitely see the benefits in doing that.
Mm-hmm. And athletes have known this for years. If you watch athletes before they go onto the basketball court, or before they, an Olympic event, let's say, where they're skiing down a mountain, sometimes you will see them just go into themselves and they're not really there anymore. They're having this moment with themselves. I call it the little pep talk. They're maybe talking to themselves, but they're also using their breath and these tools. And, when you become very good at this, you can turn it on like that. When you first start doing this, there will be what I call the dance. And that's where we go back and forth. Okay, I'm breathing. Oh, no, wait a minute. I'm having crazy thoughts again. Okay, breathe, right? And then after 3 seconds, I'm thinking crazy thoughts again. And that's okay. That's one of the other things when people start out doing yoga that they feel like, oh, I'm not doing it right because I can't turn those thoughts off. Just let it be a process. When you notice those thoughts, be curious about them. So rather than just reacting and, oh, I'm having these crazy thoughts, ask yourself why you're having those crazy thoughts. And then direct yourself back to your breath. And if you have to do it 100 times, do it 100 times, because after a while it gets easier and easier.
Yeah, it's all about practice, right? Yoga is basically a lifelong practice. If you think about something that you practice day in and day out, it becomes your routine. So using the same sales call mentality, maybe every sales call you can think you are a athlete. You're about to go on a 100-meter dash, which can finish in less than 10 seconds. What are your routines? How do you talk to yourself? And then you're able to perform a world-class performance. So I think, in terms of a salesperson, we always look for how do we develop ourselves? How do we become a better presenter? Things like that. I think is practice, right? You definitely need practice, and how you set yourself up to the point that you can perform at least 90% and plus.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. It's a practice. And that's I think my key takeaway there from what you just said is, it's a practice. It's not perfection. Someone who's been doing yoga for years and years, I've been doing it for 18 years. I still can't do half the things people do on Instagram, and I don't care. I seriously don't care, because why I do yoga is to, help my lower back and to help my shoulders relax a little bit more, and to be nicer to my kids, and to make better food choices because I'm not so stressed out. For me, it's more of a lifestyle. Yes, I want to be, physically more fit and physically more flexible, but I also want to be more calm emotionally. When we let stress build up, it leads to disease, which is just dis-ease in the body. And that's something that we really need to be mindful of. Emotions in the body can create things like cancer and diseases and all sorts of things. So yes, remember that yoga is definitely a practice.
Yeah, I think it comes to the point that, we keep on saying, we try to want to do a handstand and then, become a split and things like that. It gets you a lot of likes, right? It gets you a lot of eyeballs, but then to the end, does it get you more healthy? Does it get you less stress? Are you improving I think this is a keyword here, your quality of life. So whatever move that, you found in yoga that helps you to achieve those points to at the level or the quality of life that you want. That's what you need to do. You might want to learn more, but then it might or might not be necessary.
Exactly. And you know what the great thing about yoga is it's a spectrum. On the one end of the spectrum, it's doing handstands and holding these crazy flexible poses and incredible strength. And, that's fantastic. On the other end of the spectrum, it's lying on the floor saying, I had a crazy day. I'm barely awake. I'm exhausted. My adrenal glands are depleted. And I'm just going to lie here, or I'm going to lie over a bolster and just feel my body. And I'm going to listen to a meditation CD or whatever, an audio. And there's so many things that yoga has for people. It does not have to be, just that one end of the spectrum. There's so much that yoga can do for us. I mean, you can be, in a wheelchair and still do yoga. You can be 95 years old and still do yoga. You can be a toddler and do yoga, or you can be an extreme athlete and do yoga. And there really is something in it for everybody.
Yeah, I love that. What you just said. It's funny how yoga practice and the analogy can bring everything back to life, right? You could be as successful as you like. You could be as much money as you wish to have. But then on the other hand, if you feel comfortable with what you have right now, you like your lifestyle, then you're perfectly fine at where you want to be. So, you could chase after those achievements, right? I would call those achievements, but then you are always welcome to stay here as long as you like. In life, in yoga, I think it's almost the same.
It really is. And that's where yoga on the mat and yoga off the mat comes into play as well. This is just life. We can go on the mat and do yoga for an hour and feel better and say, I completed my yoga practice for today. But the real yoga is what you do off the mat. If you get off the mat and go yell at your kids, then you're not doing yoga. If you get off the mat and you don't hold the door open for someone as they're going into the grocery store, that's not yoga. Yoga is everywhere. It's about taking care of ourselves. It's about taking care of each other. It's about being more mindful, noticing that someone needs something, helping out, even when you don't know somebody, being, choosing to use careful wording with your children and not just yell at them and fly off the handle. And we're human. We're going to do those things. But yoga is, again, that's where that practice comes in. It's recognizing that, okay, I'm doing something that's not healthy for myself or for somebody else, and I'm going to change that. And again, we can take that on the mat, but it's what you do off the mat that really counts, right?
Yeah, I think yoga, at least for my own experience, if I am practicing more yoga throughout the week, my choices are surprisingly better on food, on other things that I do. So imagine you just finish your yoga class or you practice a simple yoga poses. The chances that you go for the McDonald's Big Mac meal is less than if you just feeling stressed and you want to eat something, then you go for what you like the best, which are a lot of us are junk food. So I think it does help you make better choices. It's kind of subconsciously, set that in you. I can't explain it, but then, you don't go to McDonald's after a yoga class.
Hey, and if you do, there's no judgment here, but but you're right. I think one of the things is it's this cycle. So when we do yoga, typically we make better food choices because we're just we can feel our body more. We're more aware of it. And then sometimes we sleep better at night because we've done yoga, right? A lot of people say their sleep is incredible after going to a yoga class. Mine the same. I know if I go 3 or 4 days without doing yoga, I don't have as good of sleeps. Well, because I'm more rested, my hormones are more balanced. When we don't get enough sleep, our hormones go all crazy. And, there are some hormones that make us feel more hungry than we should, even though we're not actually hungry. So it's just, I like to think of it as this cycle that if we're getting enough sleep and we're drinking enough water and we're eating enough good food and we're doing something like yoga or meditation, then the cycle is complete. And if all of a sudden we take one of those things out, if we're only getting, say, 3 hours of sleep at night, well, we're going to crave weird things. We're going to be overtired. We're going to drink more coffee. We're going to put sugar in it. And then we say, forget it. I'm tired. I won't work out today, or I won't do yoga today. And then the cycle just repeats itself. So to me, I see it as this cycle that the more we can do these simple things, then you're right. I don't have cravings for weird foods like McDonald's anymore because I still eat. I'm not perfect. Don't get me wrong, Swire, but I just don't crave that. I haven't had Big Mac in years and years and years because I just don't want it. I'd rather have a Buddha bowl or something with kale and spinach, and it's just what your body craves after a while.
Yeah, you mentioned sleep too. I think one of the things that we didn't talk about is instead of watching TV and going on your computer right before you go to bed, if you actually, do somewhat simple yoga poses to wind yourself down, you actually get better sleep. You fall into sleep a lot easier. And what happened the next day is you feel more productive, you're more energized at work. So little things, that little changes, I will call them choices that we have in our life, can actually change a lot of the things, like the big picture things.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the best things you can do before bed is some kind of restorative yoga pose. My favorite is called legs up the wall. So people can Google that, legs up the wall. You literally just put your bum right up against the wall. You kind of come to the wall on the side, and then you swing your legs up the wall. Make sure there's no pictures or anything up there. And then you just lie back with your legs up, your arms by your side, and your bum is right up against the wall. And you just close your eyes. And what happens after about 10 seconds is you can feel the blood moving from your feet all the way up into your body. Your legs will start to kind of tingle, everything relaxes, and you just close your eyes and do some deep breathing. It's lovely if you have soft music and you want to play some music, or put your headphones in and listen to something. But sometimes I do that and I sleep like a baby every single time.
Yeah, that pose is so easy to do. You just throw your legs up, and then it's kind of a lazy pose too, right? You don't really have to do much. And when you get into it, you just wait there and hang out and feel the effect.
It's one of those what I call magical yoga poses that are just like, who created this? It's perfect. There's no effort involved. It feels really good. No one wants to do a sweaty yoga class right before bed, right? And then it would wake you up and create the opposite effect. But it's just a wonderful, relaxing pose. Again, like you said, you don't need a lot of props and go out and buy this bolster. If you have those things, great. But this is something, everybody has a wall in their house. You just need a wall that has nothing on it for that, the size of your body, and then just swing your legs up the wall. And I encourage people who are listening to this, if they're going to try it, stay there for at least a minute, because after about 30 seconds, 30 seconds, somewhere in there, you will start to feel everything just kind of relax as you breathe. If you get out of it too soon, then you think, oh, this is silly. But if you stay up there, it's incredibly relaxing. Another thing you can do in legs up the wall. Have you ever tried this one, Swire? So you do legs up the wall, then you open your legs into a V shape on the wall, and you get this lovely stretch in your inner thighs, and it's everything, again, is the blood is coming down into your body. Have you ever tried that version of it?
Yeah, I got tight hips, so that's my next go-to one. I just hang out there, and then I let gravity do its work.
Yeah, perfect. And butterfly too. Feet together, knees open. You can take your hands and kind of press one knee into the wall, the other knee, and just take some deep breaths. That one is wonderful.
Great. If we're getting deeper into the yoga practice, I feel like we can talk for the next 2 hours. But for listener who wanted to really find out more about the benefits, and especially company who might wanted to look into a wellness program that could do for them, what would be a good way to reach out to you, Lynn?
Well, we've got our website, which is innergycorporateyoga.com, INNERGY. And on that website, there are a number of things. Of course, they can contact us through our contact page. They can read more about our services. We have a wonderful page called Take 5 as well. It's in our resources section. And on that page, Swire, we have lots of different stretches that people can do all at their desk. It's all things you can do right at your desk. So it's for the busy working professional. So lots of great tips on there. And if someone is interested in actually starting an on-site or virtual yoga or meditation program at their workplace in the US or in Canada, then they can reach out to us directly through our website.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I love, I'm going to start practicing more. You motivate me. And, there are simple things that we can actually do, in less than 30 seconds that could really help for our daily lives.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.